Okay, it's already 8:25, so we'll admit the participants. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. All right, so before start, allow me to check my camera and microphone first. Can anyone hear my voice clearly?
Clearly, all good.
All good, yeah? Okay, how about the screen? So let me share my screen first. Can you guys see my screen already?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us in our International Professional Week 2022 events, Discovering Business Opportunity. My name is Ida Bagus Kertiayana Manuaba, and you could just call me Bagus. Yeah. Currently, I am one of the lecturers in Computer Science program in BINUS University International, and today I will become your moderator. All right. So if you have followed this event since Monday, today will be our last day of events, which is focusing the topic on discovering business opportunity, especially in the entertainment industry. So today we will focus on that topic. Yeah. And for today, we will have two different speakers in two different sessions, which are in the morning session. We will have a speaker from Guerrilla Esports. And in the afternoon session, we will have our speaker from Rangkai. Okay, so this is the speakers, yeah. All right, so before I introduce our speaker in this morning session, I would like to remind to all students that about some rules, yeah, for this event. So basically, this event can be claimed for SAT points, yeah. However, there will be a minimum requirements to SAT points. You need to vote with the minimum attendance of 80%. And then you will also require to fill in the exit ticket to claim those points, which will be shared in the end of this morning session. Yeah, so make sure you will remain in this room until you submit the exit ticket. Yeah. All right. So during the session, I also encourage you all to turn the camera on, so we could feel your warm virtual presence. Yeah. And if you are BINUSian students, please change your display name on the screen using the format your student ID, that's full name. Yeah, similar like on the chat box. And then please don't forget, yeah, please make sure you are turning off or muting your microphone during the presentation to avoid the noises, so everyone could listen and enjoy the presentation well, right? Okay, so for the structure for today's session, basically after the presentation finish, yeah, we will have like time for the Q&A session. So if anyone here have any question, you could just type in at the chat box, and I will collect and read the question for you to the speaker on the Q&A session. You could also ask your question directly in the Q&A session after you get the permission to unmute your microphone. So please use your virtual hand, yeah, to notify me when you have a question, and I will call your name and ask you to unmute your microphone, and then you can start to ask the question. All right. So next, allow me to introduce our morning speaker today. So here we have Mr. Wen Hann Lim. Hello, Mr. Lim, or can I call you just Han?
Yeah, that's perfect. Hi, Bagus. How's it going?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. All right, so thank you so much, yeah, for coming in this morning session. Okay, right. So before Mr. Lim or Han start his presentation, so allow me to read the short biography of Han, yeah, for you. Okay, let me change my slide first. All right, so basically this information coming from LinkedIn. So I just read it for you, yeah. So currently Han is a director of Guerrilla Esports Singapore, yeah, and then you can read in here in my slide some past experiences, yeah. So you can see, he was also a director of head of business development in ESPL or Esports Player League, yeah. He was also director in business development in GigFam. He was also a general manager in business development in YTL and BHD, and also director sales and marketing in CNL Green Technology Solution. For education, Han also received his Bachelor of Science with honors, yeah, in business and management at University of Surrey in UK. Okay, so if you interested in more detail, yeah, about Mr. Han Lim, yeah. So you can just click the link below, or you can just Google it. Yeah, you can find like a lot of information about him. All right, so I think that is a short biography of our speaker today. Now, without further ado, I will let Mr. Lim or Han to introduce more about himself and start the presentation. So, Han, the time is yours.
Cheers, thanks, Marcus. Really appreciate the time. Hopefully, this morning session is interesting. I've had my coffee, so I'm sort of awake, semi-awake. You know, as avid gamers, I'm pretty sure a lot of us were out playing games till relatively late last night, you know. Just let me share my screen. We'll run through the presentation quickly so that we can get to the real meat of it, right? The questions that you guys may have with regards to opportunities within the esports ecosystem, within the industry, and how different sort of fields and backgrounds can apply within that. Is my screen visible? All right, there we go. So just a quick one. Guerrilla Esports was incorporated in Singapore in 2020, I think, if I'm not wrong. What we aim to do in Guerrilla Esports is to serve the esports ecosystem, creating engagements, opportunities for brands to integrate through digital assets, through offline events, what do you call it, creating brand exposure, right, for different clients that we work with. The industry in itself is a huge industry. We're talking about the value in US dollars. We're looking at 200 billion USD, and 0.5% of it is just esports, right? And the industry experts expect it to grow to 10 to 20% moving forward. I think through the pandemic, we've learned that the esports industry is unaffected or affected a lot less by pandemic pressures or global, how do I call it? Global pressures which cause a reduction in content engagement and different budgets. Consumer spending in esports is on the rise. Microtransactions within games has increased. I think that cue was taken from mobile. If you look at the games like Diablo Immortal, for example, that's coming up, that's I think scheduled for launch in end of June. You could see that Blizzard had a detachment from the detachment from their traditional pay-to-play gameplay, where it's play to earn, right? The more you spend, the faster you level up. The games industry in general or in totality has surpassed the film and music and sports industry in North America combined. So I think in terms of industry size, potential, and scale, esports and gaming itself has grown tenfold over the last 5 years. If you talk about our region, right, specifically in Southeast Asia, we have seen a 32.7% year-on-year growth, with Indonesia actually being at the forefront of a lot of this passion and a lot of this growth in terms of revenue and also viewership and brand engagements. In itself, we'll talk about the Gen Zs and Alphas. I know I'm getting old, I have no more hair, and I wish I was part of this generation, right? Where I could tell my dad, I'm getting into esports, and he'll say, okay. But this sort of shift, right, in terms of how we consume content has led to an explosion of how we view esports and how we're able to create engagements from esports. Esports traditionally was seen as a far left channel, something that's not mainstream, but I think in the last little bit, a lot of brands and a lot of companies have realized that esports is the right way to target the population, primarily because 70% of gamers are open to engage with brands if we utilize that channel. Brand recall is higher when it comes to mobile esports brand activation, and 73.7% of the Indonesian population are digital natives. So these are just some of the potential breakdown demographics. If you look at certain other sports and viewership of sports, you might get more male/female viewership. But I think with regards to esports, in terms of viewership within the Indonesian market, it's refreshing to know that the male/female split is relatively even, and that it's primarily a way for people to sort of get together through communities, be it online and offline. So I think that really helped during the pandemic. In terms of game titles and popularity of game titles within Indonesia, I think we see Mobile Legends and PUBG Mobile at the forefront, and we see a big increase or a big push coming from Free Fire. So Guerrilla Esports in itself, our company, has identified issues within the esports sphere, right? Where within Southeast Asia, a lot of brands want to get into esports, but they don't understand how to. So Guerrilla aims to solve this, and we found an opportunity where we provide full esports solutions to target brands' customizable objectives. So if we talk about opportunities that we saw, brands want to get into esports, brands don't know how to get into esports. And generally what brands understand is matrices, right? Performance matrices, cost per acquisition, retention rate, and let's say those are a few. So what we do is we take your traditional digital marketing performance matrices and we apply them into esports, and then we create content and work with downstream. The idea that we're trying to work with is to enrich the ecosystem, educate the ecosystem on how to best utilize esports so that it becomes a mature sort of industry with regards to the digital marketing sphere moving forward. Guerrilla Esports in itself was founded by myself and Nick Adams. Nick Adams being a former revenue officer for ESL. He was one of the founding partners for ESL. He was part of Twitch when Twitch set up, and he was one of the first esports shoutcasters actually back in the day. I think he still looks younger than me. I don't know how he does it, but yeah, there we go. Our three mottos of Guerrilla Esports is to play, watch, and engage. The idea is to utilize tournament assets and inventory as billboards to create awareness for brands. We work with KOLs and podcasts to create masterclasses so that people can watch and engage, watch and absorb content. And we do custom content with bespoke creative ideas to engage with the audience. Some of our, some of the brand portfolios that we work with include global brands like Oppo, Intel, Disney, Red Bull, and we also work in Indonesia with people like Maybank, Hybrid, and SteelSeries and HyperX. So Guerrilla Esports is also part of a bigger esports group called Esports Innovation Group, EIG. EIG aims to unify the esports industry via tech. I think a separate opportunity there was that if you look at the esports industry, because it's a nascent and growing industry, tech was fragmented, right? You have people making platforms, you have people doing content creation and digital aggregation. So EIG's aim was to unify that within a single point of platform and to expedite the growth and unify or put everyone within a specific or a closed ecosystem, not closed, open ecosystem where we can leverage on one another to grow this and to make this successful. Just to quickly run through some case studies that we've done. We've done some branded tournaments in Malaysia with people like Oppo, GoPlay, We Help You, Esports Academy in Indonesia, HyperX in Malaysia and Indonesia, and JS Bank in Pakistan. So with GoPlay, the idea was to create content on their OTT platform. We had a duration of 1 month with 320 teams, 320 teams competing with total impressions of about 1.8 to 1.9 million. We worked with Sabila, Edo, Cornet, amongst others, to create engagements on that. So this is just a quick example of the different brands we work with for We Help You tournament. We Help You was a logistics company that looked to basically create a different form of, how do I put it, professional networking session through esports, through people's passions, so that they could understand and get to know more people. and this was Esports ID. So we also work with, what do you call that? An academy that sort of uplifts, upskills players. JS Bank was an interesting engagement. It was the first time we worked with a bank on a single brand activation tournament. The idea behind that was to leverage a bank which was used to traditional marketing and engaging a younger audience, a younger demographic, to upsell services so that the younger demographic could understand and know the importance of why banking cards and different product services are important. And as always, with any esports companies, we worked with a lot of different peripheral companies like HyperX, Oppo, and SteelSeries. Just running through some engagements that we did with HyperX. And yeah, I think that brings us to the end of it. So Bagus, over to you. I think we're good with the presentation. It's just a quick snapshot of how we identify opportunities in esports and what we do to solve these opportunities.
Okay, all right. So thank you, Han. All right, so next, maybe we can just go for our second section, yeah, which is the Q&A session. Is there any question? Okay, please use your virtual hand so I can notify you and then ask you to open your microphone before you ask. All right, so I think we have a question from the chat box, so I will read it for you, Han. Okay, so this is from Yaya Amin. Yeah, so the question is, what do you think about the future of esport in Southeast Asia in the next 5 years?
I think that's an interesting question, right? With regards, that has numerous different aspects to it, right? So when we talk about the future of esports in Southeast Asia, there's two ways to look at it. If you look at importance that game publishers place on the region, it's huge. We looked very recently where Valve broke down their Dota tournaments into region specific. BTS is running a DPC event for Southeast Asia. On top of that, ESL has recently announced another tournament that's happening in Genting, which is not a DPC event, but they've put $400,000 in prize pool on that. So you can see that people or countries see the importance of the region for activation in esports. Traditionally, Southeast Asia has also been quite well represented in TI. We have people like Mushi, Zephyr Whitemon from Indonesia as well, right? That's in esports teams. I think the other thing that we see is if we talk about mobile games have seen a huge increase in popularity, and games like PUBG Mobile or games like Mobile Legends have franchise leagues within Southeast Asia. I think game developers have also thoughts of creating other game titles with franchise leagues, and I think that's the direction that we could see, right? There's more structure that's coming into Southeast Asia, there's more grassroots activation, and there's a push towards building the ecosystem within the region. Sorry about this. Just give me 2 minutes. I need to get them to stop the drilling.
Okay, so let's wait for Mr. Han to back. Yeah, I think there's like some background noise, a little bit annoying. Yeah, so. Okay, if you have a question, yeah, you can, of course, yeah, ask directly. So I already seen there's like one person already queuing up, yeah, in here. Okay, so back now. Okay, please continue, Han.
Yeah, so I think if we look at the trajectory of Southeast Asia, that there's a lot of focus given to it from not just publishers but also from third-party tournament operators. I hope that answers your question.
All right. So okay. So there's like a lot of field, yeah, basically not only from the player perspective, but also from the game developer and many industry. Yeah, okay, that's good. All right, so let's move on to the next question. Question. I think I see someone before Maria. Yeah, can you raise hand again?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I have two questions, Mr. Hansar. I'm Elsha from the International Business major. So my first question is, from an esports platform like yours, what types of CSR programs do you apply through your business? As well as, I heard that esports and NFTs are now closely related. So do you plan on gaining revenue from that? Like, is that a potential revenue stream that's effective enough to fund such a business as yours?
Oh, I love your questions. I think that those are really, 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 really good questions. I think firstly, in terms of CSR, esports has a big part to play, right? And truth be told, I feel personally, I can't speak for the industry, but I feel personally that we don't do enough. We saw in terms of CSR with the Ukraine conflict and Russian conflict, how powerful esports is as a tool to raise awareness, to funds for the crisis that's going on in Europe. And with regards to Guerrilla Esports specifically, we do work with an NGO in Malaysia that's primarily focused on creating education platform for refugees. What we don't do is we haven't run tournaments for them, but we actually work to create engagements on a strategic level for them, because it's something that we believe in, right? Esports being a tool or a method to reach to reach people through content. And I believe that with regards to CSR, that's a highly useful avenue to create awareness, engagements, fundraising, and to actually get people to do something about it, right? Through shared passion. So I think that's a really good question. And I do believe that esports is a powerful tool. I do not think we're doing nearly enough, but I think we are moving towards that direction, as we could see through the crisis in Europe with Ukraine and Russia. I think on your second question with regards to NFTs, now NFTs is a huge buzzword, right? It's a huge buzzword. NFTs, metaverses, a lot of companies want to get onto it. They don't understand how they can execute it. For example, if you look at companies like Decentraland, the idea of it was brilliant, but the issue they faced was that there's no traffic. With regards to NFT and esports, there's a huge potential in terms of monetization. I mean, if you look at Counter-Strike in itself, Counter-Strike has revenue generations from the game itself, right? Through sale of weapons, skins, equipment. So if they're able to link NFTs tagged to skins and weapons, which is not too far apart, it's not such a stretch of an idea, there's a definite way to monetize that. With regards to Guerrilla in itself, we're working with a couple of companies to sort of structure a metaverse where NFTs are part of a way to create a digital wallet or a digital asset portfolio, right? It's a bit like, how do I put it? It's a bit like a collector where you buy a bear brick today for 50 ringgit and 2 years later your bear brick is worth 1,000 ringgit or $1,000, for example. I think that's something that NFTs will start to grow towards. The issue herein lies is that there isn't a way to accurately measure the value of an NFT, nor the demand. But I believe that moving forward, as we start to do more and more of it, as we start to explore its application, start to give value to an NFT based off the backing of a token and then valuing the token, and then after that utilizing tokens for multiple services, then you'll start to see a real route where brands, and not just game publishers or not just service providers, but brands can utilize this to create more traction for their engagements. And then you'll see this, I think then you'll start to see it becoming part of mainstream activation.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Great answers.
Okay, so basically the technology is also supporting each other, ya Han ya. I mean, like many how to call it, it cannot be run by itself, by alone, All right. Okay, so I think we also have like another question to the chat. So let me share the screen to make it easier to also when I read it. Okay, so this is a question from the chat. Basically, the first question we have from Jones Adi Dimas. The question is, what the minimum age for my son if he want to be an e-sport player? Okay, I think I just read it first, the question, and then after that you can answer it. The second one is coming from Ihsan Hutapea. So the question is, how concerned are you about the amount of control game developers have over their time? For example, can shut down their game anytime. And how do you prepare for your business for it? Okay. And the last one is for one of our committee. How the esport creator or programmer balance for creativity and business sides, and how to create an attractive product and how to make a good business. Okay. All right. Maybe you can answer that. And thank you.
I think if you talk about first, this is like an age-old question, right? I've given a talk before, and this was a hard talk, right? It was in a youth summit where I was speaking to parents about esports, and the questions you get from parents with regards to computer games or with regards to esports are always quite Barbie and quite harsh. But like I said to them, I think the idea is that we need to sort of understand that esports is sport. It's not two different things, right? And when it comes to sport, you always ask yourself how old my son can start playing football, or how old can my daughter play basketball? You know, when is the right time to do it? And I think it's a quotient of, number one, talent and education. So when it comes down to sport, it's the same thing, right? You can say, yeah, my son plays basketball 10 hours a day. But if he does that, he neglects other things in life which he should learn, skills that he should adopt. And I think that's the key. It's not how old my son should start playing esports or how old my son should start playing football. It's a quotient of how much structure there is around, right? It's like sports university. Yes, we do training for 5 hours or 3 hours every day after class, but that does not mean you can't you don't have to pass your exams. You don't have to hit a minimum GPA, and you don't have to be polite. I think that's the key, right? When it comes down to esports and how old your son should be, I think it's on the parents, because look, they're dependent on us to learn, right? So it's how old and it's how structured that time should be. And let's say if they have a talent for Mobile Legends, you know, and at 5 years old, they're beating players that are like 16, 17 years old. Then I know we identify that he has a talent there, but that doesn't mean we can just let him play all day long. He still needs to study. He still needs to eat healthily. He still needs to exercise. And then, you know, he can have a structured session. He can work with an academy. So it's not just play, he's actually learning. And within the game itself, you're able to learn resource management. You're able to learn communication as a pro player. So it's multiple aspects to say whether there's a minimum age my son wants to play. But I think if you're talking about gaming and violence, there's always age sort of restrictions or age recommendations made by publishers based off the inherent nature of the game in itself. So I think that more or less covers it. If there's anything to add to that, then please, ask away. It's always a topic of interest to me, especially when I have two little girls at 3 and 4 years old.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. All right. So I think it's answered the first question. How about the second one, Han?
Okay, we look at game control, right? Control developers have over their game, shutting down their game at any time. I think that it should not be a worry that game developers have total control over their game, right? Reason being is if there is one point of control, you're able to then invoke or create better ecosystems for one, to play in as a community, and two, to prevent cheating. Let's say, for example, you talk about Riot and Vanguard, right? Riot has almost total control of their games and also their ecosystem. You compare them to Valve, where when you run the Dota Pro circuit versus Riot running their pro circuits, Riot has a tighter control, and that leads to a less toxic community, one, and two, there's more structure and more grassroots progression with Riot versus someone like Valve, right? And the DPC circuit. And personally, it's a bit sad for me because I love Dota more than I do League of Legends, and I'd like to see Dota succeed more than LOL. Might be blasphemous for me to say that, but I think that's the way forward. But in terms of how you prepare businesses for it, we have to understand that when game publishers work with brands, it's a bit like a sports team working with brands, right? Or an event like the Olympics working with brands. There are commitments in place where you say you need to commit X amount of hours, content, live streams, placements. And if that doesn't work, if that doesn't happen, then they do not get paid. If let's say the Olympics was cancelled for that year, Olympics will not get the money that they were committed by brands because there was no event. So I think that in itself is two slightly separate topics. In terms of control, I think developers should have control, but I believe that they should also listen to the audience on how to best develop and move their game forward. Because without the community, there is no game, right? Without the community, there is no team. And how to prepare businesses for it, it's pretty much BAU in the sense that if I create any sort of engagement or commitment and we sign a contract, and if they fail to deliver, then due diligence or the due process begins on the back end.
Okay.
We look at the third question, right? How esports creators and programmers balance creativity and business side. This is a tricky question. I mean, honestly, personally, I don't know how to say that, what do you call that, they will create the balance, right? I don't work for Riot, for example, but if you ask me and you say how a successful game works, it's always a balance in the sense that publishers need to realize that if I want my game to grow, I need to have community for my game. And therefore, I need to listen to what my community does. If you look at a lot of games, there's a lot of patches, right? And these patches and hotfix always try to improve the game, listening to what the audience say. Now, you go and look at it, there's a few different companies that do it better than others. We take, for example, World of Warcraft and Blizzard. Yeah. That community has a very strong voice, right? Maybe not now, but let's say 2 years ago. Or even 5 years ago, there was a lot of avid, there's a lot of avid supporters of that game. There's a lot of comments on how that game can be improved, granted, because it's a game that's more than 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, right? So there's a lot of different mechanics and engagements that the game can improve. However, the publishers listen less to the community, and they develop the next variant and the next variant, and their patches don't fix the problems. And if you look through all the blogs and if you look through all the comments, you'll see a repeat of what the community is saying. And if you look at the macro view of it, you can see the subscription for World of Warcraft decreasing over time, right? So that goes hand in hand. If you look at games like League of Legends, for example, you see an increase of people playing, or even Mobile Legends, because these communities or these developers listen to the community and make modifications. I think Dota is slightly slower than, Valve is slightly slower than Riot in terms of listening to community feedback, making the game better, and how they improve that. So I think the balance in itself is to focus on how to retain the community and to grow that community of players, which will then in turn lead to better business, right? So the more users, the more players, the more engagements you have within that game, the more likely you are to find engagements with brands.
All right. Okay, so I think that's very good answer, yeah? So is there any question? Any more question? Okay, so
I do have a question, if possible. to ask?
Yes, who is this?
I am Lily.
Oh, okay. All right. So go ahead.
Okay. So, Han, how you manage an esport according to your experience? This is my first question. The second one, is it a lucrative job? Some things that promising in the future?
I think, okay, the first question I just wanted to clarify a little bit. When you talk about managing esports, are you talking about a team or an agency?
Both of them.
Tricky. Okay, look, when we talk about esports teams, I think that's the trickiest part of esports, right? A professional team. It's a bit like if you're managing Arsenal, you're managing Manchester United, or the Los Angeles Lakers. There's a lot of parameters and whatnot to work with. And I think what people don't see, or what we don't see, is like if we're not what do you call it, part of the ecosystem of professional sport, we don't understand what goes into the running of a football club. What we see is what we watch on TV, right? 11 players plus 5 running around the pitch, getting subbed on, subbed off, and they don't play that hard out. We don't see the training, we don't see nutrition, we don't see diet, we don't see what do you call it, brand engagements that they have to do, professional development. We don't have a look at all that. So if you talk about what goes into esports, or what goes into managing esports, or how do you do it, it's the same principle applies. With regards to esports teams, in order for a team to do well or to succeed, one, you have to have good owners that are one, patient, two, understand how the game works, and they bring aboard the right talent and pay the talent right. Having the right talent also does not translate into success. You need to have good coaches behind them, a good environment for them to learn and grow. So all these are different aspects, right? You have then social media, you have then events planning, you have the brand engagement team. So managing a team in itself could be a lucrative opportunity if the team is good, right? If it's not, then it becomes a cost center where you have to fly the team to multiple places. To compete, but they don't make it, they don't succeed. So like any professional sport or professional team, there are a few good professional teams, and there's a huge grassroots sort of engagement. I think what we are seeing more nowadays is that publishers focus on grassroots, creating that sort of nurturing environment where players are able to be exposed or to be seen in order to reach the pinnacle, right? Even with Mobile Legends, right? They have PMMC, a lot more campus leagues. They have a lot more grassroots activations in order to help players reach their potential. Being an industry and a lucrative job, I think it's not the most lucrative industry to be in, but it is definitely the most passionate industry, right? People within esports are in esports because they love what they do. Let's say, for example, myself personally, I did a business degree. I was in F&B prior. I used to run multiple restaurants, and I joined esports not because it paid the best, but because it offered the best opportunity for me to use what I've learned through university, through my professional life, and to develop a nascent ecosystem, right? Through something I enjoy. I love playing games. Genuinely do all my life. And my dad told me you can't make money playing computer games, and hey, look at me now. But I think that's the key, right? We're not going into esports to make a huge amount of money. We're going into esports because it's a job that we can use our skills in. Let's say I did accounting, or I studied accounting. There are esports companies that require accountants, CFOs, and whatnot. There are companies that are on the smaller end of the spectrum or growing within Southeast Asia that require accountants if you do well there. There are companies and publishers like Riot, or there are teams and groups like Misfit Gamings or FaZe Clan, which pay better. So like any other industry, I think esports has reached a point where you have industry leaders which pay top dollar. And these are people coming from, let's say, Facebook, Google, joining the esports industry. So you know that they're able to pay top dollar. And you also have smaller SMEs within that industry that pay you slightly more entry level. With regards to running an esports agency, I think that there's a lot of parallels to a digital marketing agency / events company, right? where we create engagements for brands. We work off KPIs and matrices. So let's say if brand needs 1,000 users or 10,000 users, we create a strategy behind how the user acquisition happens, the journey, the mechanics. A lot of these skills that we use for that, we learned through our agency days, or we learned through university marketing, our marketing sort of segment, our marketing module. So that in itself, sort of what I'm trying to say is that we're trying to unify both industries, right? Esports is not something that's far left. It's not something that's new. It's actually an industry that's a good ecosystem where people are able to find professional development through the specific field that they studied in and make a career out of it, and possibly a lucrative career as well.
Okay. Okay, is there anything more, Ms. Lily?
No, later on, I think.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. All right, so I think we also have like another question through the chat. Let me read it again. So basically there's two questions. Okay, maybe you can also see it from the screen, yeah. And so the first one is how important the feedback from the outside. So this is, I think, still related with the question before, yeah, about the community. Yeah? How important the feedback from the outside of the community, like for example, non-esport player to the esport business. So this is from Francini Gracia Del Santi, and the second one's from Jones Adidimas again. So do you think that esport player job can be part-time job or it should be a full-time job? Okay.
I think with Francini, with regards to your question, feedback from outside community, from non-esports players, I think that's important, right? I think all sorts of feedback is important. In order for anyone to grow personally, professionally, as a company, reflection needs to happen, right? Likewise, when you go into an exam, you come back, there are mistakes made. You don't just say, okay, there are mistakes made, so be it, right? There are feedback from teachers, or there are feedback from parents that might not have gone through your course to say, hey, have you taken into account this point of view? And I believe all feedback is important to understand, because esports is no longer something that's saying like, if you're not in this industry, you don't understand it, right? It's an industry where we engage all walks of life, all races, all demographics, people that are, let's say 7 years old, all the way to 40, 45 years old could be avid supporters of the same team, and they all have valid opinions. So I think feedback and reflection is always important. Any engagement that you do, any campaign that we run, we always have feedback, both from community, from people that are within esports, not within esports, and also internal and external. So yes, I agree with you. I think feedback is always important, and it's not just important in esports. I think it's important also in our personal lives, right? We need to reflect on whether feedback is, one, correct or wrong. Does the feedback make sense? If it does make sense, how do I rectify? How do I then combat zero? If the feedback is non-constructive, how do I then compartmentalize that into something that that we can turn it into a constructive criticism, right? And John, for your question, I think, do you think an esports job? I think this goes the same with a lot of different things. Let's say if you talk about being a player itself, right? Being a player itself could work both ways. If we talk about football, right? Leicester City, Jamie Vardy in itself was a great example. He was a part-time player. He used to work in a factory, play football part-time, and I think 4 or 5 years later, he became the top scorer of Premier League through Leicester City and winning the Premier League with Leicester City. With regards to esports, the same thing can happen, right? Where if being a professional player, you don't get paid, you still need to have a job that covers the bills, and you hope you get discovered. If you talk about actually other facets or other aspects of the industry, people doing content creation, marketing and whatnot, it works the same as I think other industries where different roles can be done part-time if they're done through personal, what do you call that? If it's done out of a hobby, like creating esports content is a hobby that can be done part-time. And when it scales and it's able to cover my bills, I can turn it into a full-time job. There are other aspects where you talk about people doing, let's say, business development, marketing, sales, operate tournament operations, event organizations. I think those are then full-time roles which cannot be done part-time.
Yeah, agree with that. Okay, I think it's answered very clear, yeah, for this good question. All right, so I think I also see there's like another one more question in here. So let me paste it in here. All right, so this is the question from Kevin Hansen. Yeah, so the question is, what are your thoughts about the future of esport, especially in Southeast Asia region? And then with the rising fame of certain esport game like Valorant all over the world, Riot attempts to implement new tournament format in 2023. Do you think it will have impact to the ecosystem of the esport or remaining scenes? Okay.
Well, yeah, it's a great question. I think if you look at it in general, right, the ecosystem is always changing. Nothing's ever the same. You take the oldest sport as an example. One of the oldest sports in the world is golf, right? It's not the most exciting sport. It's probably a sport our dad plays. Maybe some of us do. And things didn't change, right? You have US PGA Tour, EU PGA Tour. Now you have this new event, the LIV Tour, that's backed by Saudi, fronted by Greg Norman, with 1.6 billion pledged to it, that threw a spanner into the whole ecosystem. And then PGA saying, if you play in this tour, you're banned at my tour. So I think in that sense, the ecosystem never remains the same, right? It's never going to be the same year in, year out. We looked at Valve and the evolution of the DPC circuit, right? Now the DPC circuit includes regions, right? EU, C, and you have tournaments in these regions that are allocated DPC points. And we used to just have, the Birmingham, one in Europe, Arlington, a couple here and there, but it's all further away. The idea that publishers have, I think, within Southeast Asia or within the world itself was to localize or regionalize tournaments so that you create the best possible opportunity for teams. What I mean by that is that if a team just started and is based out of Indonesia playing Dota 2, back in the day, if they wanted to be a TI team, they have to fly to all the major tournaments, right? And flying by like more than 5-6 hours, flights aren't cheap, accommodation isn't cheap. Whereas now they have the opportunity to play within the region and qualify or get points to qualify for majors, which didn't happen last time. I think the cost was higher. If you look at mobile games, it's the same sort of structure, right? Where they heavily focus on community within regions. Let's say you have PMMC, you have PMPL, country leagues, C leagues, and then global finals. So there's always this progressive route, and I think that was the reflection people had, because that's how the sort of disparity between top teams and mid teams was too high, and that's how they reflected and brought it together. Now, when you talk about games like Riot's attempt to create new tournament formats in 2023, I link that very specifically to things like badminton and squash, right? So, when we were growing up and we watched badminton, it was to 15. And I only win a point off my serve. The issue with that now is that it wasn't the most exciting sport to watch, and games could go on for like 2-3 hours, right? You could watch Taufik for 3 hours or 4 hours. Whereas now now badminton is a much faster paced game. Win point off any serve to 21, and it becomes more of a spectator sport. I think when you talk about publishers and when they change formats, that's generally the idea behind why they change the format. They want to improve viewability. They want to create more engagement, more excitement for audiences. And that translates to multiple things, right? It translates, the more people watch it, the more likely I am to get brands to sponsor. The more people watch it, the more people will likely play the game. So that's the reason why formats sort of change. And I think in terms of impact to ecosystem, having publishers think and change and move and evolve is a good thing, because then it's never static, right? We always see new things happening, new ways to engage, new understandings of the game, different methods of how I can improve and play, because if I play this meta well, it doesn't mean I'll play that meta well, right? So I think that creates excitement within the ecosystem in itself.
Okay, that's the key point, yeah. Create new excitement, yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay, I think we have someone here again raising hand. Yeah, Mbak Yaya. Okay, so Mbak Yaya.
Hello, good morning, Han. Thank you for answering my first question before, but I do have another question. I'm not honestly, I'm not really familiar with this sport, but we heard about women in STEM, something like that. So I just want to know women in esport. Can you tell us more about the women role or something like that in the esport currently?
Oh, 100%.
Thank
Look,
you.
I think that's a key, right? A lot of what do you call that? There has been a lot of focus about creating parity in sports, creating women's league, women's Formula One league. I think the best example of how women's in sport is doing well is tennis, right? How they get paid on par with men. The biggest distaste I have in esports and having gender brought into the fore is during gameplay with toxic environment, right? The things that people are allowed to get away with saying. And I think there has been a shift in publishers more and more to root that out, so that verbally that becomes a good environment for women to play in and to play in equally. Now, if we talk about having opportunity, I mean, we have great female professionals in Malaysia, right? Ramona Azwin being a key one of them, playing Counter-Strike. She used to represent a China team, for example, a team in China, for example. And I think that's huge. We have female streamers all the time, Chuchu Gaming. We have really good connections with, someone that's a firm advocate of women's rights in esports like Tiffany Oling. And I think by having by having spoken to them at length, by having two daughters of my own, I think where the industry now is versus where the industry was 5 to 10 years ago, there has been a huge shift towards parity, right? Maybe not in creating opportunities per se, but it's a lot to stamping out things that should not be said, behavior that should not happen. And I think that's the start. And what a lot of publishers are doing now, and a lot of third-party operators, Malaysia, Indonesia, and I think even the Philippines, they're creating leagues for female players, right? There's a couple of leagues in Malaysia that focuses on female players for different game titles. And that was basically how esports started, 15, 20 years ago, where you had localized leagues with passion and interest. So the more leagues we run like that, the fatter the pipe in terms of females participating in esports, and then the conversion to pro, the conversion to the leagues will happen, right? And I think we're seeing the start of that now, and I think that makes it really exciting.
Thank you. That's good then.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for the answer. Is there any more question? Not yet.
In your opinion, which is the more effective to build a strong
Alright, so we
esports
have
team? Changing team roster or define gameplay, or just to let the roster improve and why? This is an interesting question.
Yep, that's indeed. Yeah, let me just share the question again.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone can also read it. Yeah. All right. So, well, you already read the question anyway. So you can...
Oh, this one's challenging. I might say the wrong thing. I think this one is interesting, right? Last time people used to look at it as, it's just an esports team, and if I put the best players together, they'll win. And I think that's not true, right? OG is a great example of it. The Dota 2 team, they might not play all season long, but they still win TI. It's also the same, like if you look at NBA teams, right? Basketball, Los Angeles Lakers, you had Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James on the same team, but they only won one championship. They got kicked out of the playoffs. Russell Westbrook wasn't playing like Russell Westbrook. And I think that's a quotient of a few things. When you talk about a successful esports team, does changing the roster every year work? Yes and no, right? If you're talking about, let's say players, like sports, if you're talking about experienced players at the end of their playing career, if you don't refresh that team, then the drop-off could be quite fast or quite huge, right? Motivation is not the same. So that's why maybe some teams change the rosters. Whereas you have other teams, like I think if you look at T1 now recently, right? T1 has kept that roster for quite a long time, and that roster has been together for a while. I think the T1 roster, who is it? White One, Zephyr, Tuku, not Raven, Carl, and I think there was one more, I can't remember who it was. But basically that roster was even together in Geek Fam days, right? They started as Geek Fam, and when they started in Geek Fam, they weren't winning majors, right? They qualified for Bukovo, they didn't win it. But they started getting together, playing stronger together and gelling. They even qualified to the Beyond the Summit major in the US, right? And I think that's the key. If you find a group of players at the right age, with the right training, and you keep them together, you can see where they are now. Look at this group of players when they were together. I mean, I think Geek Fam did the right job, right? And they did a great, the person running it, he did a great job in terms of building that team. When the team first started, they had, I can't remember, the Korean guy as team captain. They replaced him, and they didn't replace the whole roster. They replaced different parts. And when they had the right team, they kept the right team, and they only lost players through poaching, and they replaced one player, right? And that roster now qualified for TI through Tier 1. And that works. On the flip side of it, you have other teams that keep repeatedly changing rosters. That can work sometimes, but it's not extended. It's not an extended sort of. It's not an extended sort of way to. Well, how do I put it this way? It's like a team buying a superstar just to win one championship. They don't have a continuity plan, right? Where if I build this team together, if I grow the relationships, the content that I create in order to market will be better. The stories and the relationship between my players will then also translate to gameplay. So it's a different way to find success. And personally, I prefer growing and building a team. And I think when a team becomes friends, when a team is family, then they really do fight for each other. So that's my personal opinion on how a team should be structured, but that does not always lead to victories or a win.
All right, so Vicky, so is there already answer your question? Do you have any more comment for your question from the answer? All good, yeah? Okay, so I think let's see if we still have any other question.
Anyone? Have one more question. If I may throw another one more questions. It's very interesting, actually.
All right. So please go ahead.
Han, what are the challenges, or what is the most challenges when you are doing this kind of like business?
I think the biggest challenge, it has been evolving. Our challenges have been evolving as the industry develops, right? So if we talk about 5 years ago, the biggest challenge that we faced in esports was to tell people, hey, it's not just computer games, right? It's actually an avenue which you can create engagements, lasting brand recall for your brand. And I think now the challenge is less so that when you talk about esports engagements, people understand, oh yeah, I can do esports engagements, right? I think now the challenge that we face with regards to esports and esports engagements is to, how do I put it? It's that you're finding the right opportunity for brands. Last time there was less opportunities and a very hard sell. Now that there's a whole plethora of opportunities, the challenge always is to get the brand to identify the right sort of matrix that they're looking for, and then finding the right sort of engagements. For example, a lot of the times brands don't understand esports. They say, I want to do a brand launch, right? I want to do a brand launch and I want to use esports. And I'm like, okay, that's understandable. So if you want to do a brand launch, what goes into it? Are you looking at which specific demographic? Are you looking at awareness, acquisition? What is your retention target? What are your key performance indicators? And a lot of the times brands don't understand that. That's that part in relation to esports. They understand it with digital marketing. But if you reflect those matrices into esports, you can use the same headers, but the rates and engagement rates differ, right? So I think that's the disjoint that we're having at the moment, in the sense that we should or try to educate brands on how to best leverage esports to hit the matrices that that they want.
So you kind of like educate to them as well then, because
Correct.
you know, tough one, right?
You tell me.
Thank you, Han.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Bu Lily, for the question, and thank you, Hans. I think we still have like a question in chat box, yeah. So
Yeah,
maybe
I
I will just read it, yeah. So this is from Kevin Hansen again. So the question is, what are the indicators of the healthy esport competition according to you?
Okay, in terms of healthy esports ecosystems, healthy esports competitions, I think we draw parallels with any sort of competition, right? I think any sort of competition in itself is healthy within variances or within certain degrees. And I think all competition in esports is generally healthy until you go to the point where you are not operating within the parameters of the rules set out by the game, right? So I think competition, like let's say, even if you do a football competition or sports 100 meters race, competition is healthy. You win, you lose, you learn, you grow, you get better, right? And the line is drawn where competition isn't healthy, or it isn't healthy for you, is when you start doping, right? You start taking performance enhancing drugs in order to beat your competition. And that to me is not healthy competition. The mental state that you were pushed, one, in order to make the choice is not healthy. And two, your coaches allowing you to do that is not healthy. So that's when you need to reflect, how do we best do it, right? And likewise with esports, competition is healthy till the point where you go across that line, right? Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. He went to 6 NBA finals and he won 6 finals MVP. He had a winning attitude, and to him, competition is healthy, but he never crossed that line, right? But he wins. Whereas on the flip side, you had other basketball players that, you know, would punch referees, would hit referees, would constantly get flagrant fouls just to try to win. Meta World Peace, for example, Ron Artest is the original name. So these players were never great and never the best because they had to resort to crossing the line in order to compete. So I think that's the difference between what an indicator of healthy competition and non-healthy competition is.
All right. I think it's very clear enough, yeah, to explain about the indicators of healthy in esport competition. Okay, any other question? Any other question for Han? Okay, if not, maybe I have like one more question for you, Han, if okay. All right. So from before, we listen like there's like a lot of opportunity, and then like open wide, especially in business and others perspective. Yeah. So my question is basically now I'm interested to join because well, let's say I'm new in this, and then I'm really interested. Right, so how I can start it? So which point that I need to start with these esport things? How I can start it, like Okay,
it's like it's like the BBC. If you go into the BBC website, there's always the bottom thing. How do I get into esports, right? Or how do I get into basketball? Yes. I think if you talk about esports, there are many different ways to get into esports. It depends on your level of interest, right? For me personally, I don't have an interest in playing professionally. I have an interest to consume content. I have an interest to play at a competitive level, and I have an interest to sort of educate people on the upsides and downsides of esports. So the way I got into esports, or the best way to create impact, that's what I wanted to do, right? Create impact in esports. So I think what I then did was to say I have professional skills that are average, maybe above average, but I have professional skills that I can use in the industry. And then I went that route. For example, if I'm a player and I say, hey, my MMR is like 5-6K, I'm quite good, I can play professionally. Then the question is, how do I get into that, right? Is to then play in higher ranked games, to stream content in order to get seen and to be viewed. There are other ways where you have teams like, let's say professional teams, right? They have junior teams. So GeekFam, EVOS, whatever not. They have junior teams where they have trials and they have trials for you to play in order to join their academy program and then to become a pro player. So that's one route if you want to be a pro player. You also have academy, right? Esports Academy in Indonesia, for example. So you have different academies where you can improve, learn the parts of the game where you're not good at, improve knowledge of the game to grow. So then you can become a professional player. For example, I think if you talk about professionally, a lot of esports companies, Riot, Moontoon, Tencent, EIG, Guerrilla, I mean, all of us are hiring working professionals, right? Whether they're UI, UX, content creators, business development, operations, we're always hiring different, different job functions. And professionally, there's also many different avenues to be part of this industry as well.
Yes. Okay, so if I can sum a little bit, so first, it depends on the interest, the interest that which area that I want to start, and then what is the background of ourselves, and then of course, the opportunity is high, so it means not only become a player and not only professional player, but also can be like you, can be managing the event and then building the game itself, so there's like a lot of opportunity here, Okay, all right. So I think that's all from me. Let's check one more time. Is there any more question from the chat and directly? Anyone? One, two, three, four, five. All right. Okay, all right. So I think well, if we see the time is already 9:42 as well. So I think this is already I can conclude this is already reached the end of the morning session. I think thank you so much for sharing today, Han. And then thank you for participation as well on the Q&A, all the answer, good answer. So before I close, on behalf of BINUS University, allow me to express our most sincerely gratitude to you, to our speakers today. And since we are using Zoom at the moment, so I cannot, or we cannot just give you the token of appreciation. So for that, maybe just symbolic, we will just use the virtual token of appreciation, maybe. Miss Lily.
Yeah, thank you very much, Han, for the insight for this morning. We know right now a little bit much better in regards of the e-sport and e-game and so forth. And we would like to thank you by also giving the token of appreciation. For sure, we are going to send it to you.
Really?
Not just only virtual, the real one.
No, we should do NFTs next time.
Yes.
All right. NFT, that's a good choice. Okay.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, guys. I really, really do.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I would like to thank you for all the participants for all your participation, your contribution to this morning session, and remember, we still have one more session in this afternoon event, on, if I'm not mistaken, 3:30, please check again for the schedule, and then before ending the session, I would like to ask for taking a photo together. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay, so I would like to ask everyone here to turn your camera on, so that will be very helpful. I mean, like it will be nice to take a picture with
full.
Sorry?
We have 8 pages.
8 pages.
Wow, that's a lot. But it means good. I mean, like it means this event is really good. Many students interested to listen about the topics. That's good. Okay. All right. Can we do? Okay. All right.
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Yeah, it's done, Pak Bagus.
Done? All right. Thank you so much, Mas Sultan. Okay. All right. So once more, I would like to say thank you so much again, for the speakers, for all the participants, and especially for the students, BINUS student. Please don't forget to fill in the exit ticket, so the link will be provided after the session. Okay. So thank you so much, Han, for your time, and see you in other occasion.
Well done.
Okay.
Thank you so much for time.
Thank you,
Thank you so much,
sir.
guys.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Bagus.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
all.
Okay. Pak Sultan Reza, can you share the ticket? Okay. For all students or BINUS students, you can see in chat box and also in your screen, there's like a link for the SAT point or the ACT certificate, so please visit this link, or you can just use your camera and then scan the QR code. Okay. Please make sure you fill in with your data correctly, because it will be recorded, and will be used for the claim the ACT points. All right, so I think that's it for today. Once again, thank you so much, guys, and I hope you still we have like another session this afternoon, so see you again this afternoon. Bye
Thank you, Pak
bye.
Bagus. Thank you all. I see you again,
Thank
you
you.
guys, in the last session. Very going to be interesting as well. I see you guys 3:30. Thank you so much.
Lumayan lah 150.